Yes, guys, you know what time it is. It's your boy David at the Irish Hotspot, Ireland's #1 Spurs fan. And this evening, we bring you another sort of podcasty debate sort of show. And of course, it's myself, co-host Jack. We've got Bryan Gil, who will be back. And we've got the one and only, the Jorical. Many of you would have seen him on We Are Tottenham TV. In fact, we've got Orobas Demis. He says, lol, who's the Don in the thumbnail? That would be Jerry, one of the greatest YouTube pictures of all time, I must say. But look, we'll start with you, Jacka. How are you keeping, my man?
Keeping pretty well. Looking forward to having a convo with the Jorical today. It's nice to have kind of some new blood on these sort of convos and these sort of panels, Dave. We get new kind of opinions, new sort of kind of ways of looking at sort of, you could say, some issues that Spurs certainly are dealing with. And it'd be nice to get a different insight on things. So I'm looking forward to it. And then, of course, naturally, we have the Daigle with us as well.
No, 100%. And we've got a lot to discuss tonight. We'll be talking about the one and only Gil Messi. We'll be talking about the farcical decisions. We've also got the formations and stuff like that, talking about Conte and Levy and the contracts, and a lot more to discuss. Jerry, how are you keeping, my man? Thank you for joining us this evening.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm great, and I've been looking forward to it, David. Been a long time admirer of your takes on We Are Tottenham TV, and after a lot of faffing around with too many Google accounts, I finally managed to stay subscribed to your channel as well, and I've been following it for quite a bit now, and I absolutely love the content and the conversation. And especially, which is, I'm happy to join the conversational format that you bring out there.
Love it.
It's very helpful and insightful. So, yeah.
No, I really appreciate that, my man. And look, this is all it is. It's just Spurs fans giving their opinions on current topics. And look, hopefully we'll all have a good show. Everybody, make sure you always smash that like button, smash that subscribe button as well. Keep getting your comments in the chat. We will bring them up as we go along as well, and we'll try and address as many as we can. But sometimes it does get hot and heavy and hard to handle. And look, some people just want to be the Don. If you want to be the Don and stand out in the chat, feel free to make it a super chat. Get it in. We'll all have a good discussion on it as well, so don't hesitate to do that. But like we said, part of the agreement to tuning is we will bring your comments up on screen as we go along and address as many of them as we can. But look, Jack, we'll hand it over to you, my man.
And Dave, you know, you can't escape this conversation. We're going to be talking about the VAR, and I do kind of want to get sort of Jory's takes on maybe this sort of VAR controversy and even just sort of VAR in general. But we'll sort of start with Antonio Conte's words, Jory. When speaking after the game, Conte said that the ball was in front of Kane. Therefore, to him, it's simply a goal. He goes on to even say that VAR is creating a lot of damage for the game, and even speculates that he'd be curious whether this sort of decision made at our stadium last night would be made in another big stadium. Do you feel like this sort of injustice, according to Antonio Conte, is justified, or do you feel like maybe they made the right decision ultimately? How did you see it, Jory?
Well, I mean, I think they made a really bad decision, a really wrong decision, first of all. I'll get into that. And I mean, I do feel that Conte is justified because even if it's a right decision or wrong decision, VAR has one main and overarching number one purpose, which is to bring consistency to the rulings. And VAR has been almost more inconsistent than the on-field judgments. And therefore, it's very, very difficult to accept those rulings. And Conte brings very rightly up that he's, since Hugo Lloris got penalized for stepping off the line and had to retake the penalty, he's clearly been watching other penalties in the Premier League, and wouldn't you know it, everybody's is getting off the line when they before they shoot. And we've known, I mean, I think I don't know if there's any instance of a goalkeeper saving a penalty without moving at all. You know, you do lift your foot, you know, and that was what Lloris did. And so I completely feel Conte's critique is legitimate, and I I also think what he talks about there is to so drastically alter miraculous what we in Iceland call the whistle goal, which is a goal on the last seconds, is something these guys wouldn't have the nerve to do against Bayern München.
Yeah,
Against,
so you subscribe to that.
Yeah, no, I completely. They don't have the, and that's maybe, you could then maybe go in and say that that's not good enough, that they don't have the nerve to do that and so on.
But it's how it
I
is,
think,
sort of. Yeah, they just don't do it to those teams. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think what we've seen already, and like, because we've seen periods where VAR has worked really nicely, and maybe especially the international tournaments and stuff like that. But I think we're at a point now where the inconsistency with the VAR is as much, if not more, than the on-field judgment, that it's counterproductive to its original purpose, and it's ruining the atmosphere of the game.
Can I just Can I ask, push you? I just want to push you further. Where do you stand on maybe VAR after that? We've probably have some benefit of hindsight. Let's be honest, Jory. We've had it now for a few years. We've seen some atrocious moments of VAR. There's probably more of a data bank now when it comes to some of these really bad decisions. Has it gotten worse over the past year in your eyes? Was it doomed from the beginning? Like, where do you stand with it now? Has it gotten worse over time? Has it gotten better? Where do you stand on it?
I mean, I think I think really the real problem here is just the level of refereeing in general, and actually the UEFA referees are quite good normally, but I would say that if you put any kind of if you give the refereeing enough money and enough resources, it will improve a lot and have a big part of it. This has always been my big gripe about the Premier League. Is like it's by far the biggest money earner in football, and we have some of the worst referees in the Premier League. I do feel the UEFA refs are on a whole at a higher standard than the Premier League. The Premier League is shocking quite often, so I do feel that that's kind of that's very it's really unambitious from the club owners to not fix this, to have a higher level of deliverance in this part. I think.
I agree.
I definitely agree with the level of the referee, and I do think it's in decline over the years. But that's because they don't really make these calls anymore, because they just know that VAR is going to intervene anyway and save themselves. So when you look at the games, it's like the man in the middle has less and less power and is inclined to make less and less decisions, purely because he knows, regardless, VAR is going to deal with it anyway.
Exactly. I think you're seeing some of that, like people who are actually quite good at making the right call and weighing up stuff and have the strength of character to handle that.
Right.
They're now handing over that to a room of pits where they do it, and then they're just being passive receivers of information, basically. And that's maybe the biggest problem. I think you've seen some brilliant refs actually kind of take control of the whole VAR situation, but I think I've maybe seen 2 or 3 instances of that. I do think that if you want to continue with this level, and as you're doing it, we need to put in like half a minute. You need to either make the call refer the ref to the monitor, not more, 30 seconds. And to be honest, if you can't make the call within 30 seconds, it's not clear and obvious.
Well, that's where I sort of stand, Jory, is like, if they're taking that long over the decision, would they take that long over the decision if it were at not the Camp Nou anymore, but the Spotify Stadium, or would they do that at Old Trafford? Would they do that at some of the bigger, more intense atmospheres against some of the more higher pedigree teams where they know all the attention is going to be drawn on them if they make the wrong decision, as we know, where it feels like with Spurs, even though it's a massive club and a massive team, feels like they can get away with making kind of a decision like that. They can take their time. They can sort of look for whatever angle they need to in order to rule it out. I feel like even on these watch-alongs with Dave this season, feels like every other side that we come up against, when it is some sort of VAR controversy for Spurs, they're looking at every angle. They're taking every possible second that they can. Feels like it takes forever. But when it's for any other side, when they've committed some sort of offense or maybe they've committed a foul, feels like we only get one angle as Spurs. I don't know. Of course, we like to subscribe to these conspiracies, but I do agree with Conte and I do agree with you, Jory, that if this sort of, 5-minute decision over an offside sort of line, would that have been made against Bayern Munich? Would that have been made against the PSGs of the world? I really don't think so.
No. And to be just to comment on that, Jack, because we are a big club, but we are only a big club in my view in terms of community. We're not a big club in terms of silverware. We know this,
especially in the European pedigree recently,
especially European as well. And the thing, we're not a big club in terms of influence in these governing bodies. We're the outsider on the FA of the big clubs in the Premier League, and we have absolutely no pull in UEFA. So try and do that now to the main board members of UEFA, like a Real Madrid or AC Milan or whatever. They value their job too much to do that, I think. So it will happen against teams like Spurs, but not against these top clubs. I completely agree. Yeah.
And as well, I think the rules need to be the same all across Europe as well. There's different interpretations for the English Premier League and European football. It's just kind of like if the rules were the same the whole way across Europe, regardless whether you're playing in domestic football or whether you're playing in the Champions League. And the same goes for refereeing. These guys using VAR in their own countries, using them in the Champions League. And same for the referees. If everything was just the same, there wouldn't be as much confusion. But you're asking guys that are behind the VAR that are refereeing to do it the European way when week in, week out in their domestic leagues, they're using it and interpreting it in a different. It's just the whole thing is an absolute shambles from top to bottom, and it really needs to be sorted out. They need to make it clear and obvious to everybody. The whole of Europe needs to play the same way, and it makes it easier on the players, the management, the refs, and the people in the VAR rooms to be able to get to the correct calls and get to them quickly because there's because everyone it's the same, absolutely everyone. I think we need to get to that stage.
Yeah, I completely agree. There's no way that you can make this successfully with different rule books. And also, I think at this point, I think it would be easy to just do a review on it. Just go through the games and see if it's actually bringing more consistency into the rulings or not. And if not, then you can make the decision to implement more guidance in terms of how to use VAR, or simply start the process of returning us to the on-field. Because I completely agree with Conte as well there. I can much rather accept a wrong ruling from a ref on the field than VAR. VAR, you can't accept it.
We would much rather see the human error. I'm with you there. Daigle, can I ask? I asked Jory this earlier. Where do you stand on VAR, considering we have a bit of hindsight, right? We have a bit more knowledge with how decisions have been made over these years. We've gotten a bit used to it, you could say. We kind of maybe in the middle of the VAR era. Was it doomed all along for you? Has it gotten worse in the past year in your eyes? Where do you kind of stand on it, especially considering the context of last night? And let's be honest, the Premier League has had some interesting VAR decisions this season as well. Do you feel like it's gotten worse?
Listen, the way I look at it now is if you look at it before VAR came in, big rule changes that changed in my time of watching football. One of the biggest one I could talk about was the back pass rule. It's quite simple. You pick up the ball from a back pass, it's a foul. That's it. No grey, no white. Not if it touches your feet. If it comes off the head or your chest, it's fine. It's back pass rule. Feet, ball, done. There's no. It's black and white. There is no. Then goal line technology. I'm only saying about the big things.
Yeah, I know what you're trying to say. Yeah.
The goal line technology, which is incredible. It's a watch. The sensors. It goes past the line. Goal. No human interaction whatsoever. It's done. It's done by a machine. And you can see now, like how they use Hawkeye in tennis.
And it takes like seconds as well.
It takes seconds. It crosses the line. It don't cross the line. You don't even see any striker or goal scorer even complain if they say the ball doesn't cross the line. They're like, no, okay, fine. Then VAR came in, which at the time we were all crying for because you could see a penalty we should have got, or a penalty we shouldn't have got, or a goal that should have blah 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 blah. And we got told that this was going to be for clear and obvious errors. That's it. That is all they're getting involved in. If a yellow card should have been a red card, or a red card should have, blah, if it should have been a penalty and clear enough. This offside, it started off as clear and obvious, and it's like the people that are in VAR have now got power trips.
Trigger happy, even.
It's not trigger happy, power hungry, whatever word. They just want to get involved in everything. It's like that one person at work that just wants to get in everybody's business and know everything. And it's like, do you know what? I think the referee blew just anything and everything. And it's got to the point now where I've been saying the last couple of days, and maybe I'm a bit emotional after what's happened again with us, is I think I was happier without it. I really do. You know what? You had the odd decision which caused huge controversy to bring this thing in. Well, now there's a million more controversial moments that it's causing than it's actually solving. And I've seen other people saying it as well. Cheers, Eddie, brother. I've seen other people saying as well, they need to put a time limit on. If it's not, if it's, let's say 90 seconds, 2 minutes, whatever you say, because it's getting stupid, not just for us watching at home, but for the spectators at home, for the actual flow of the game. It's getting beyond the joke. You look at the World Cup and the Euros, bang, bang, like that. Just, yep, that's a foul. But when we have it in our league and Europe, it's causing all manners of problems. So it's
almost one of those situations as well where like maybe you brought up Brian, like Jory brought up, where it was supposed to be brought in for the clear and obvious. It was supposed to basically be like the other rules and updates before, where basically, yes, maybe run by humans, but really not supposed to have any human error whatsoever. It has now, I think, reached this stage where once they started making one decision based off sort of human interpretation and kind of human judgment, then it was almost kind of a domino effect. Yeah.
But here's the problem, though. It's the biggest talking point every single weekend.
It is. We're not even talking about football
Champions League football, and that's not what it was supposed to be for. It's supposed to come in, just seemingly correct the wrong decisions, and that was it. But now we're coming out. You know, you have Sky Sports, BT Sports bringing on referees to be able to explain the VAR decisions and stuff like that. It's kind of like, you know, referees are supposed to be silent. They're supposed to just be sort of the man in the middle, and that's it. Now, no wonder why you're seeing referees with slicked up hair in the middle of refereeing games and everything else, because they know they're looking for the BT, the Sky move, so they can explain VAR decisions. It's not what it was brought in for. It wasn't supposed to be the biggest talking point. Instead of talking about football, instead of talking about wonderful team moves, instead of talking about goals, brilliant saves, etc., 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 all it is now is VAR, 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 and it's just completely taken away from it.
You know, Dave, the other thing I want to add to it, and this is another thing that Jack will know more about, because obviously where we live in North America, what I would love to see, especially for the spectators at home, but only when it's for VAR, not for when the refs talking to the players and what they're saying. For the people that are watching it, when we're watching it all on TV or in the pubs, whatever, we're getting told, is it the offside? Is it a foul by this guy? Is it this? The people sitting in the stadium, they just go possible offside. You're like, well, who is the offside person? Because they're not seeing replays, and they can try and be a part of it themselves and go, do you know what? I did see that. I was thinking maybe Davinson Sanchez, I'm just picking a player here. Davinson Sanchez may have committed that foul for a penalty. When you say penalty decision, it could be 2-3 minutes ago. And you're like, give the people in the stadiums that are sitting there thinking, what the hell is going on here? A little bit more a bit more understanding of what is actually going on. We all see it. We all see it when we're at home. We all get to know what they're checking. We get a million different kind of versions of it. The slow-mo, the fast-mo, the up close, the zoom out. In the stadium, they're just sitting there going, well, what do I do now? What do I do now? Then they're all on their phones trying to find out. Then they're all trying to get onto their apps. Just make it more interactive within the stadium, so at least they know what's going on. Because it kills the stadium. It kills the atmosphere of the game.
It's killing football.
It is killing football. And like I said, if I had my choice, time limit or just get rid of it, I think I'd still choose get rid of it.
But there's also another thing. I mean, this is in many ways, I think that too many owners actually wanted to take up more and more time. I mean, eventually, if this trend continues, you'll see these spaces be filled with commercial, like brought to you, whatever, like you see in American sports, and that's the same where they're talking about, the halftime interviews and all of this. So slowly we're seeing, space being maybe made for this kind of commercialization of these little interruptions in the game. But in general, for me also, like VAR, the country, I think you hit it on the nail there, Jack, that saying once they started in like going with,
interpreting it less.
Exactly, with one ref's interpretation and so on, then it's kind of like a Pandora's box. It's kind of like it just gets worse and worse, basically. And for me, that also tells us the offside rule is not good enough. And I've said it a million fucking times.
Yeah, that's still
the thing about, because this is something I do a lot in my work, is like looking at pictures and estimating where things are and so on, and it's pointless measuring elbows and fingers and noses and whatever. The thing should be where your resting foot is. That should be the line. Now, if Kane's foot is in front of the resting foot of the last defender, well, then he's ahead of it, because where my shoulder, if I have abnormally long arms, it's not going to give me any advantage. It's the freaking feet that's
what you can score with
here, The same about the back pass, because that's now in play now. Now we're talking about where we're measuring the ball. Why are we measuring from that side? So, are we always going to measure it from the least advantageous side? Or, of course, if you're going to measure a ball, you need to measure it from the center of the ball. If you were to do it with your resting foot, or the foot that's planted on the ground, or as close to the ground as possible, well, then you can actually implement goal line technology. Then you can make a computer estimate these things. Yeah. So,
if anything, though, when it becomes the human interpretation, Jory, you can even see how it's become a bit of human interpretation with the way that the referee is sort of smirking at the end of the game, almost kind of Gooner style. We've also seen that one referee, when Kane got the winner against Man City, he threw his arms into the air in frustration, seeing Spurs win. I mean, we have to admit that the referees, like, they're not perfect people themselves. And I think when we give them that sort of power, and when they, like you said, open that Pandora's box, becomes, I think, it's become an unmanageable problem, I think, at this stage. And now it feels like we either just sort of live with it, or we maybe go back and get rid of it. I'm not sure.
You know what it is, though, Jack?
Yeah.
Someone put in a comment there, Jack, on. They basically said football's the only sport that's fucked it up. Cricket has got an interpretation of it. Rugby as a Gaelic football over here has something a bit like more like Hawkeye and stuff. Check and make sure things go over the bar.
So it's not the technology itself.
It's not the technology. It's the actual people using it. Like Jory was saying, like Brian has been saying, like we've been moaning about, Jack. It's their interpretations of it. It's different in Europe, different in the domestic leagues, and it's just nobody knows what's going on.
But I also think, like, the rule itself,
it needs to have a review, 100%. And just quickly to Divvy here. Sorry, the reason why no one got to see replays, it's actually up to the I think it's the Champions League themselves who released the images over the broadcast. They choose not to show the replays. They choose not to show what they're doing, whereas the Premier League do. And again, it's different. Europe, Premier League, another example of why it's different. That's why no one got to see the replays, because the Champions League doesn't allow it to be broadcasted.
And just in general, I mean, for me, just in general, if you're competing in international competitions together, you should really make every effort to have the rules come from UEFA and simply be the same in the leagues as well, all over, you know. Yeah, but also just, you know, we can, you know, if Harry Kane, you know, and Sonny are kind of training and tweaking the timing to be onside in the Premier League, and now instead of being alongside a defender, it's like you're allowed to or you if you know, if the ball is included or whatever the difference might be, you know, now in the other competition that kind of millisecond tweaking and perfection of these players is now not really on anymore, you know. So yeah. Well, it's we've got plenty of things to be upset about. We don't need this on top of it, right? So
the way to wrap it up as well with this is, football's about the enjoyment and celebrating moments in the last minute, like the 3-2 at Leicester, the 3-2 at City. Not the we've just scored another winner in the last minute, but we're not going to celebrate it for a minute, or we did, but then we have to stop. And it's killing it. It's killing it. Do you know what? Like we've been mentioning in Hawkeye, I don't know if it would even work out better if we had challenges like in Hawkeye. Like if you said, you know what? If the manager wants to go, no, I think that was offside, then the manager gets to call it. But if it's wrong, you lose a strike. And if it's right, you obviously keep. Maybe we put VAR in the hands of the managers to let the managers decide when VAR comes into play.
I mean, Arteta took it into his own hands at Ellen Road. I saw him pulling the cords himself outside the stadium to try to get the power cut. So I think he took it into his own hands. But I think.
But that's actually. I just want to. Sorry, Jack. I don't want to.
No.
I think actually that's also one way you could really settle it, is like just give each team two VAR calls if they want. And they trigger the call, you know, just like a timeout or something like that. You have these two calls. If you feel it's and then beyond that, you'll have to go with the decision of the ref on the field, you know. So
how far would Conte throw? Because I think in the NFL they have like those little flags that they throw. I mean, Conte probably would just throw it so far. He probably would try to hit the referee on the back of the head, I would imagine, if he could. But I think, honestly, Dave, I couldn't be more excited for this, and I couldn't be more actually just looking forward to this bit of question. It's a bit of positivity. It's a bit of fun, but I think it's time to talk about the prophecy of Hill Messi, one of the channel's favorite players, you could say. Bryan Hill Messi certainly impressed last night, or at least it made an impact, some would say, each time he has come off the bench this season, playing in that right wing position. Since the 3-4-3 struggles to click consistently without Kulusevski, does Bryan Hill possess the skills for you, Jory, or that ability to make the 3-4-3 maybe work until Kulusevski returns? Can he basically sort of plug in and do a job until Kulu comes back?
I said when we signed Gil, I call him Gil, I don't know, Hill. When we signed him, I said Bryan is the type of player that, you know, you can throw him up in the air and spin him around, and when he lands, he's always going to be facing goal. You know, he's kind of he has such a high level of instinctual understanding and ability in the game, just like Kulusevski. His problem is, and we saw it against Frankfurt.
Frankfurt bullied him a bit.
How easy it is to step him out. The way around that is for him and for the team in general to play a lot faster. If we play fast enough, and that's also what we saw on his sub appearance before that, that was maybe Frankfurt actually, and people were saying like, he was a little bit like Lucas, and like he was just like a busy bee and stuff like that. And I kind of concluded also that a way for him to avoid the step out, which we call it here in Iceland. Do you call that in English actually, when you simply just step a man out off the ball without
shoulder him off the ball, or
not even
barge him
shoulder,
off,
and just like it's actually your ass that's usually doing most of the work. And
you do usually have to have one of those.
Just muscle him off the ball, right? So and we call that stepping a man out, and which is a legal thing, and where you see it classically in kids football. You'll see brilliant kids, and then they don't get us to be as big as the other kids, and all of a sudden they're just stepped out of the game completely. They have no influence in it. And this is a little bit of the situation with Gil. But if you're so erratic and so fast in your running and in your runs, then the clear and obvious line to step you out is not as clear anymore, and you can actually get around it. So I think he's kind of developing that into his game a little bit. And in terms of crossing it into, he's the best, apart from our son, like Sonny, Perisic and Kane, all can deliver good crosses. He's on that level, I think, in terms of crosses. He's got the IQ, I think, for like Kulusevski is quite unique.
That's what it feels like we're missing in the 3-4-3 is that IQ that Kulusevski brings. Is Gil capable of that?
The IQ, I mean, I think Kulusevski is quite unique in world football in general anyway, but I don't think Gil is far behind. Gil is just coming a little bit more from a La Liga way of, like, more the tiki-taka IQ, whereas Kulusevski has more directness to him and more he's fiercer in his and he can be, he's bigger, he's stronger, so he can be fiercer in his in his vision, basically. Like Gil needs to have a vision that's more about more touches and going around, whereas Kula can go more for the throat, so
What are your thoughts, Bryan? Considering how Lucas played the other night, I think Matty Hayes described it as a ping pong paddle with how he was playing at right wing. Is that just being harsh on Lucas, or is there something behind maybe playing Bryan Gil instead to sort of fill that void until Kulusevski comes back? Because we need somebody to fill in that sort of IQ that Jory was sort of talking about.
Yeah, first of all, with Lucas Moura, he's just come back from an injury. I don't.
Harsh,
But it's not even just a bit harsh, Jack. He's been like this for like 3 years.
That's true.
It's like he's not been, and it's not his. Again, it's not his fault. We've elevated so much and expect so much more. He's just not up to standard anymore. He's getting older. He's going to go back to Sao Paulo when his contract's up. And he hasn't been good enough for a while. And we've seen. Do you know what? We had him, and we were using him because we had him. And he was the option. But since Kulusevski's come in, he's shown him and shown us
the levels.
Like they're beyond levels, mate. Beyond, it's like night and day between them. And I think now with Kulusevski being out, we've seen how, whether we play 3-5-2, whether we play 3-4-3, what different variations of it, 4-2-4 when we're attacking, we have absolutely no creativity whatsoever. None.
No.
And the only time I would say that I had faith that something may happen creative-wise is when he's been on the pitch, because, like Jory said, he is forward-facing. He does drive to go forward. You saw how he won the penalty last week against Frankfurt.
Yeah.
No other player's been doing that in Kulusevski's absence. It's just been, let's go backwards, sideways, maybe a long ball, and then maybe a through ball. Every time we get the ball, there's nothing.
He wants to make something happen. He wants to make chaos, essentially.
So what it reminds me of perfectly, and this will show people will remember, in the year that we won the FA Cup, 1991, there was a game that Spurs played, and actually Paul Gascoigne was at my synagogue this morning, where at a friend's bar mitzvah, before he went to play this game, and dominated the game. But we played Oxford in the cup. We beat them 4-2, and he scored 2 and set up 2. But the point I'm getting at is there was the third goal, which was his first. Yeah, his first. we were just backward passing, backward, sideways, and you could hear the crowd getting really antsy. All of a sudden, Gascoigne topped the ball, when even the commentator said the crowd were getting upset because the attack was going nowhere. And by the time he finished that sentence, Gazza had done a 1-2 and put the ball in the net. Because that's what he could do. He gets the ball and then bang, off he goes. And you knew something was going to happen. And Bryan Gil at the moment, not saying he's going to do a Gazza, but I'm saying he's the only one that when I see him, I'm like, right, this guy actually might try and take on his man. He might try a bit of skills. He might try a bit of trickery. He won't pass the ball backwards. He's going to try and surge to get forward. And that cameo that he had yesterday, he certainly made the. We played better in the second half. We went up levels from the first half, but we went up levels again once Bryan Gil came on. And I think it's time now, until Kulusevski comes on, whether he's the starter automatically, but I think he's owed the chance to be given that start to see, right, we've tried everything else. This is your opportunity. Don't get me wrong, I don't expect him to be man of the match and do stuff, but then we're saying we haven't given him opportunity to prove his point. Yeah. But I think now in these little cameos, he's taken them. Yeah, he's earned the right to start, in my opinion. That's what I'll say.
100%. 100%. I just want to start off by saying, when I saw his face, I said, I'm a believer. No, but honestly, when it comes to Gil, right, the word I'm going to use is technical. What the Kulusevski offered when he came in, he can chop in on his left, he can play that beautiful crosses to the back post, he has a bit of skill about him, he also has strength. And what we've tried there is Lucas Moura and Richarlison, and you would say two very similar players. Trampoline feet, ball bounces off them about 40 yards, not very, very sort of technical. Whereas when you see Gil come in, he offers that technical ability that Kulusevski could offer, where he can switch it in on his left foot, deliver that ball from a nice acute angle. He can skin a player as well. Now, the problem is with Gil Messi, and I fully understand it, right? When we first signed him, everybody was so frustrated at this football club with the manager, with the owners, with the transfer policy, and absolutely everything. And Gil was used as a whipping boy to whip Paratici with, to question the likes of the recruitment with, etc., etc. But it was also a part of a culture where we were writing off players before they even signed for Tottenham. We called the Juve boys rejects before they even got here. And we weren't even giving a player a chance to kick a ball before people had already made their mind up on them. Now, if you were looking at Gil, the signs were there that he could do this. If anyone goes back to remember when he came off the bench and made a cameo against Chelsea, he nearly broke Pulisic's ankles. Nearly broke them with a bit of a move. He was absolutely, like, the guy has that technical ability. He has that skill. And everyone says, oh, he needs to bulk up. Correct. He does need to learn to hand himself physically. The only way you're going to do that is by playing him in the games.
Yeah, like, he needs more experience with this.
I listened to an interview Robbie Keane done and Luka Modric. He says, when Luka Modric walked through the doors at Tottenham, they all laughed. They said, this guy is not a hope to make it in the Premier League. And they said, once they walked out of the first training session, they realized they had a world-class player on his hands. Because sometimes it's not about strength. If you're a big guy, you can bully people, you can hold up the ball, you use it to your advantage. But if you don't have that strength, you've got to be smarter. And
find other ways.
Your first touch can be away from the opponent to give yourself that 4, 5, 6 yards that you might need to get turned and run at him. You know, he also has the technical ability to pass it first time, make a run in behind that player to receive it back. You know, so you don't always need strength. Aaron Lennon wasn't the strongest, but he had his pace and he can burn most people. There's other ways around it, but in order to get Gil Messi, to give him the tools and the experience that he needs to be able to handle himself in sort of like the physical environment of the Premier League, you've got to give him game time, and that's the only times it comes. If you go look at Luka Modric, his first touch is always away from his player. He already knows where he wants to move the ball to, and that's why no one can get near the guy. And Gil has that sort of ability when you look at him. Gil Messi, Gil Modric, whatever you want to call him, Gil Hoddle, it does not matter. The guy, I think, is an absolute baller. And look, hopefully we can give him time to settle now, because there's no point in persisting with Lucas Moura. He doesn't want to be here. He's winding down his contract. He's off to Brazil, and that reflects it on the pitch. And why keep persisting with something we've seen time and time again? It's not like last night, just because Lucas is back from injury, that what we've seen from him was out of character. There's been countless performances like that you can recall from Lucas Moura where it's ultimately frustrating. Then you look at Gil, just even look at the way he drops in five 3-4 yards, to be able to create space, to pick up the ball, to be able to get on it. He wants it, and it's infectious. But also when we don't have the ball, he's running around like a blue arse fly to try and get it back. He just wants to play. And for me, I'd rather have that technical ability there than someone like Lucas, because the biggest problem at Tottenham over the last while has been the players that we have here have not been at the technical level that's been required to play in the Premier League, Champions League, and do things on a more consistent basis, which the top teams have players that can do that. And if we want to do that, we've got to start playing these technical players. So play Gil. The fact that he came on and played 20 minutes to produce more than what Lucas Moura has done says everything I need to know. Gil is coming off the bench with a point to prove. Lucas Moura is happy being backup, and that's why you see the performance.
The word technical, though, Dave, is kind of then connecting to what Bryan Gil said about Lucas, right? Is Lucas... I mean, we were happy with him at one stage, but now the better that we've got over time, we've just sort of realized Lucas really has his ceiling, and especially he has his technical ceiling.
Of course, you're going to be happy with him. Your only other answer was Musa Sissoko, Ndombele, who wouldn't move an inch, the Celso, who done absolutely fuck all. You know what I mean? Of course, you're going to be happy with Lucas Moura, because at the time, we were actually praising players who gave us a bit of effort, a bit of energy.
Yeah, that's right. Lucas was praised for effort.
You should never, ever fall into that trap at a football club where you're praising players for the absolute bare minimums and the requirements of being a football, which you shouldn't even have to be asked for. You're paid for that regardless. So Lucas Moura, yes, he done well at a period, was because he worked hard, he'd run about, and that's saying everything for me, to be honest, really. But when you see some of the more technical players that we're starting to bring in there, it's just highlighting some of these players even more.
Yeah,
David, you know it as well. Just very quick, just a very quick point. None of us mentioned it, and it hit me. I'm actually surprised none of us mentioned it. What's also happened with this is, you know what I say about we get too sentimental with players? He's got to get out of jail free pass because of his hat trick at Ajax. So don't talk about Lucas. Lucas scored that hat trick. He'll go down in history if it weren't for it. And we do that too often. And he seems to get that get out of jail free pass because of that moment. That moment and that adrenaline and that buzz it would have given him, let alone us, should have said, "I want more of this. I will."
Probably.
And it should have elevated him to go, right, this is what I want, and I'm gonna. And because he's done, look, since that he scored a banger against Norwich last season, an absolute banger in the top bins, but he doesn't do it regularly enough. He really, really doesn't. And because of that game, he's got like a don't touch him, he's a legend, and he will be a legend. Let's face it. But that doesn't mean that gives you the right to just continuously play for Tottenham when you're not performing.
Yeah.
No, but I will push back on that, Brian, and I will say,
how dare you?
Lucas has never ever not turned up. You know, he might be confused, he might be out of position, whatever. But there's never been a question about him turning up, you know.
That's what you're talking about, yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of us, I include myself, put him at a different level in terms of a legend in that regard. And also we have to remember that Champions League season even was he had that miracle in Amsterdam, but he was also instrumental through the whole campaign. Actually, one of the best players in that Champions League campaign, you know, and
he's had good spurts.
Yes, and we will forever live with the shame of him being taken off for the final, and Kane played instead, you know. So I also think a lot of fans rightfully are a little bit shameful that we actually ruined maybe the biggest moment of his career there. So I do absolutely agree with it, Brian, and I just feel in general, and we're seeing it now with Hugo, it's like these holy cows, I can't stand it, you know. It's absolutely terrible. And in terms of Lucas is never gonna adapt too much to any other play. Lucas is good when we play fast. If we're playing fast, Lucas is the most useful, I would at least say, you know. But we're constantly slowing down our game, you know, and then you need players like Kulusevski and stuff like that can spend more time on the ball in terms of not not losing it. But Lucas, if you give Lucas time, he'll just take on even more players, and when there's no more players left, he'll take on the referee as well, so that's just the kind of guy he is, but
what I will say is, I do
but I
think
would say in general, just to finish my point here, because we're seeing some absolutely shocking behavior from our squad once again, and from these legacy players once again, and I would say Conte has a really tough task now to select the squad, and I would say we need to start looking at it from a ranking point of view. And number one, you need to compete. So the players that compete, they get into the squad. Lucas, he runs, he competes. Gil runs, he competes, and so on. You go through that. Dyer doesn't compete. I know we don't have an obvious answer for it. Davis doesn't compete if the pressure gets high enough, and so on. But that's and not until you're done with going through the compete. Like for me, that's the baseline. Then you go on to other attributes, So I would actually try and think of using both of them, to be honest.
I think you will have to use them. I think Gil is at the age, Jerry, where you're going to sort of dip him in and dip him out, to kind of, when the minute he's starting to have a bit of a decline, you take him back out, put Lucas back in. But I do think the biggest difference from what I've noticed from when Gil Messi has come on, especially against Frankfurt and, last night, for me, I think the difference is vision. I think how they see the game.
No, I mean, there's exactly.
Yeah,
and
Lucas
that's
Moura
been
is very quick.
Yeah.
He's like tunnel vision, whereas Gil Messi takes his time. He looks around, he sees everything.
Exactly. If Moura had vision as well, and
He would have been a different player.
I mean, his IQ is not high enough as well. I love Moura. I've been defending him for a long time. But if he had vision and IQ, I mean, we would be talking about a star player in Real Madrid or Barcelona. Or, he would be absolutely elite player. But he doesn't have those two things, which hurts his absolutely amazing technical ability. Is wasted a little bit because of it, So
I agree. He just never developed, I think, that part of his game, and I think we all thought that eventually it would just come together for him, and it just didn't. It felt like, but
the thing is, unfortunately, he said this at Paris Saint-Germain. This was his problem at Paris, that he could run with the ball and get up the ball, but they weren't happy, or they didn't. They're saying he had no end product, so he's come here. And obviously, it's the faster league, so all the attributes he had suited him to play better.
They thought it would click for him in the Prem.
Exactly. And there's like you said, and like David said, he's like, I remember Ericsson could have 4 months where you couldn't touch him. You could not touch him. He was unstoppable. And then for like a month and a half, he'd be non-existent kind of thing. Well, Lucas did that where it'd be like 3-4 games maybe. It'd be incredible. Like when he played in the centre under Jose.
Exactly.
It really looked like we'd unlocked that part in him, but then it went away again.
I know what you're saying, Brian. Monender saying with the super chat here, saying UEFA and the FA and VAR need to learn from the cricket third umpire. And I think whoever said it, I believe it might have been Brian, that it's not exactly the technology that's the problem. It's really just the people that seem to be implementing it and the people that are interpreting it and the way that they're using it right now. Monender is really the problem. But I don't know, the VAR, it's certainly not going to be something that we're going to probably put to bed. We'll probably have this conversation again, I imagine, in a few weeks' time. It really is one of those topics. And that's also kind of the pain, I think, of VAR, Moninder, as well. It's just, it just keeps coming back to us, and we keep having to bring up sort of sometimes the same talking points. But I think always you still have to bring them up, but big yourself up. If anybody else wants to skip the queue and put in your comments as well as and put in your opinions, feel free to put them in a super chat. Great way to support the channel, as well as just to get in on the conversation and have your say and put it any way you like. But everybody, we are going to keep talking about sort of this 3-4-3 and maybe kind of the inclusion of sort of Hill. But I do kind of maybe want to put it in sort of the context of the 3-5-2. Is the 3-5-2 been a bit too stale for you, maybe, Brian, or has the 3-5-2 maybe not been given enough of a chance in your eyes? Is there some sort of tweak that we can make to it? Perhaps maybe putting a Hill behind Kane and Son or something like that. But I feel like with what we saw Hill maybe able to do in the 3-4-3, is that maybe show that Conte could go back to that, or should he maybe continue with the 3-5-2? Is it maybe kind of not dead and buried, would you say?
So do you know what, Jack? You and me have had discussions on this channel many a time over 3-5-2 or 3-4-3, and then the reason I wanted to go 3-5-2 was because we were getting so overrun. And let me just say very quickly, Sue Smith's in the house, so I've always got to do my diamond as soon as I see her. So big up Sue Smith. So getting back to it, I said I wanted 3 in midfield to cut off the oxygen of the other team, because I thought they were just getting too far advanced on us. We were getting overrun, we were getting overworked, and if we had those 3, whether it be Basuma, Skip, Bentancur, Højbjerg, any of that 3, they're the 3 people that could really suffocate a team and get the ball quicker to Son and Kane, and we all know what they do. But then when we have done it, we've lacked even more creativity when we had the 3-4-3. So now I'm kind of the thing that...
Yeah, I know. Oh, maybe we lost for a second. Might come back.
I'm back. Can you see me?
Yeah, you're back. There you are. Okay. There you are.
Well, where did I go? I was on a really, really good little run there, and it. So yeah, as I was saying, with the 3-5-2, I kept saying I kept feeling like we needed to suffocate teams. But now you look at it, and we were lacking creativity, even in that formation, even in the 3-4-3 with Richarlison, we were lacking creativity. Yeah. So now maybe it is the time to try this 3-5-2. People say, "Oh, drop Kane and play 2 up top." Well, we can't do that now with Kulusevski and Richarlison out. So maybe it is do that. Let's play 3-5-2, and either Son drops deep and Gil goes up, or Son does. Those 3 can pretty much rotate. I'd want Kane.
That 3-5-2 has to be with an attacking creative player.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean,
with a DM, and it's just not attacking enough.
You know what it is, David? As I said, I think I would have loved to see it against the Filth, to just suffocate them. Would have loved to see it against Chelsea. We did see it against United, and we know what happened there. So it didn't work. It didn't do its job as in strangling them, and it also didn't help us creativity wise. So do you know what? We're talking about this boring football, and let's try something different. Why not try 3-5-2 with like you said, with a creative player at the top of that 3? Who knows? That could be the key that unlocks it all.
I agree with you, Brian.
That could be the key that unlocks it all. We've got to try something, haven't we?
I agree with you, Brian. And I also see where, like, Spurs fans, I think ultimately we're seeing the real consequence of not obviously going after more center backs right now in the summer. But you do kind of look at right now with the likes of Kulusevski missing. Since we have switched to the 3-5-2, for me, it has been a bit too stale going forward. It has been sort of a bit too reliant on Kane and Son kind of finding some miraculous combination kind of between each other. And it also relies a lot on the wing backs, which, let's be honest, are sort of a bit underwhelming at times. And maybe we were sort of regretting not going after some sort of guy to be able to make the 3-5-2 work when we find ourselves without a Kulusevski. But there is some sort of workaround where if we did want to go to that, if we did want to do some sort of shape like that, who knows? I mean, Hill does perhaps make sense to go through the middle. He seems technically good enough to play through there. It makes even sense that one game when Lucas actually did play through the middle, and I believe that second half. I mean, it is, I think, where Lucas's best position, and Newcastle, right, Dave? It is Lucas's best position, I think, is through the middle, not really on the wing anyway. So I actually didn't think that was that bad of a sort of tweak by Conte. I do hope that we maybe consider it. But what about for you, Jory? Do you feel like the 3-5-2, has it not been given a proper chance maybe, or is it proven to be a bit stale?
Yeah, well, the thing is, there's 2 3-5-2s. You know, there's the one that we saw when we first switched to this system was when we subbed on Basuma, and that's when we saw Basuma sitting in a 1. And Bentancur and Højbjerg went up, and that's actually a very offensive formation. You know, that you're basically adding Højbjerg and Bentancur to the attack there. You know, of course, one of them, usually Bentancur, was further back, but you can alternate that, and you can see how hot Bentancur is now as well. You know, and he's starting to shoot a lot more, which I'm happy to see because he has a good long range shot, and so does Højbjerg, by the way. So both of these guys can actually do quite a lot of damage, I think, if they are if we're brave enough to play it like there, and if Basuma has enough confidence to do it, what Basuma does, you know, what he did at Brighton, you know, which is almost to be like a single man. He basically is a destroyer equal to two when he's at his best. Yeah. So so that's one of them. The other one is, of course, the more classic, where you have two at the back, two sitting back, and one cam in front of that. And the cam version, yes, Lucas would probably be the obvious one for me, because I don't think either Kane or Conte would be happy to drop Kane into that role. Kane would be the strongest player in that role at this moment in time. Once Kulu is back, he's the obvious guy to take that role. But Lucas definitely could do a job there. Maybe Gil can do a job as well. Maybe
Let me ask you about Lucas, Jerry. Would you consider dropping Kane in and to be the ball passer and actually put Lucas making
that's what I'm saying. Like, Kane would be the best playmaker. Just like Kane would be our best centre back if he did that. Kane would be the best goalkeeper as well. So that's just how it is in our club. So
put him at right wing back.
It
feels like if we even had a Richie though too, that could even be it sort of hurts us him being hurt, because you could put Richie and Sonny up top. I think David has always asked for Richie to be played through the middle. He doesn't like him being played out wide. That's sort of then maybe you, like you said, drop Kane down there could sort of make some sense. And I feel like the 3-5-2. Yeah.
So no, but I would say that the reason I think, like a Conte, let's say all the guys are back now. The reason why, let's say at least Richie was back, and the reason why Conte would be reluctant to play that is because now we kind of go from having a elite attack to having a good attack, maybe even great attack. But as good as Kane is, yes, on his day, he's an elite playmaker. He's a De Bruyne-esque assist maker. So yes, but I do agree, and I think Conte and his staff will look at it as a bit of a waste of Kane's talents also. Even though even you could make a big argument, because Kane could be the best false nine in world football. If he was to take that on. And that might unlock a lot of the other problems or the other players in this half-baked state that we're kind of in now. But I would say, as a stopover, there are definitely solutions that we can look at. But we need, I said it at the end of this window, I said we were risking the whole thing, and by way of that, then also risking Conte's tenure, because we didn't get that centre back. But as the season has progressed, I now see it as we've risked everything for not getting these three roles in. I think all of these three roles, missing the cam can basically turn everything upside down. Missing the right wing back can put everything to the side, and of course the centre back is so blatantly obvious that it's painful.
Just listening to you on Harry Kane there, maybe in the 3-5-2 role, I do think you could sell it to Kane that, even if the ball goes out wide or over the top for these players to run onto, if you can just say, Kane, as soon as you hit that pass, back up the play, the amount of times you'll be able to pull the ball back from him, and he's got a lethal shot on him, curl him in, blast him in, it doesn't matter, he will still get goals. You can still sell it to him like that.
Yeah, I've noticed I think I've noticed a change in Kane. I think Kane will, at this point, he will basically do whatever Conte will ask him to do now. I see him like I've often gone over this with the boys at We're Tottenham TV. I don't see Kane as a selfish player, but Kane is a very powerful man in our club.
Yeah.
And he has used that power to gain for himself.
True.
Whatever, free kicks, whatever. We can go to the list,
Don't say that. Don't say Kane and free kick in the same
No.
sentence ever, Yuri. Don't.
No.
But I have to say, Jory Ball saying
Exactly.
when you said the word stopgap, the one sad thing, apart from the result yesterday, did you see the tweet going around that showed Kulusevski on the touchline last night?
Yeah.
So he was basically, he's on the. You can see he's definitely out till the World Cup's finished. He's basically on the touchline. Every time we're getting close to goals, he's on his hands and knees. He's moving, and you see him trying to get up.
Yeah.
He ain't getting up
And
like we're getting up. He is definitely. When Jory says stopgap, it is definitely that too after the World Cup. We ain't seen him. He does not. He is not moving well on those legs. The adrenaline's doing it. So yeah, stopgap's the right word.
But look at that passion in that video actually, and
the passion
with all of these players, we have like there's a countdown going down. You know, eventually they will give up if this club will be allowed to behave as it's done historically. You know, you cannot maintain this kind of killer passion that these guys have. You know, and we should now we have the coach, now we have new players with this kind of attitude. It's really important to now in January basically get the job done, you know, at least for our first 11, you know. I can accept that we're thin in the backups. I can accept that for now, you know, until summer. But we really need three players this January, in my view.
January and the summer, I think, are the two of the most important windows in a long, long time. Even those like me who, when I've looked at the squad and I've assessed it, you know, and I've said, look, I can understand what's gone on the last little while, but this summer, I think, you know, it's got to be sprinkling the team with the right players, but with big signings, you know, and it's got to be this summer. So even people like me who have maybe shown a bit of patience on the Paratici and Conte and understood the project and where we were and drew the line from the Steve Hitchen recruitment and what we had to do going forward, even someone like me now, this summer, I'll be demanding the best quality of player brought in that position. You know, I'll be demanding if decent money spent on that player. It's just got to happen. They've laid the foundations. They got rid of all the problems out of the dressing rooms. If this does not happen this summer, well then I'm gonna be really pissed off because they've put themselves into a position to be able to do it. So that's where I'm at with it. But Mark Swifty says, big up to all four of you. Keep up the good work. Swifty, really appreciate that, my man. And look, I don't know what's gone on beforehand, but I appreciate you coming in here and reaching out like this. Hopefully we can just forgive and forget what's gone on in the past, my man, and just a new direction forward, man. Big yourself up. It takes balls to come in here, my man. Big yourself up. I appreciate it.
Marky. Good to see you in here, my man. Hopefully you're feeling welcome. Hopefully you're feeling at home, my man. Big yourself up and appreciate the support, brother. But kind of on sort of the 3-5-2, just quickly again for me here, lads, is it kind of the case that it's not been given a proper chance? I'd like to sort of think so. And maybe the case against Man United, where I felt like the boys just didn't even step off the bus that day or even get on the bus, is sort of how we even got to look at it. It's sort of kind to them to even say they got on the bus. But in the other games where we saw it, the likes of Brighton, felt like we were in control. We saw it work in games when we've sort of switched to it in kind of mid-game. I don't really feel like the 3-5-2 is dead and buried, but I do feel like maybe there does need to be some sort of tweak to it. And maybe even the absence of a Højbjerg didn't help either, because I would say maybe Højbjerg is probably the most adventurous kind of those midfielders going forward. He likes to make those Viking-like runs at all costs when he can. And also, if you even look at that Newcastle game, we were in control of that game. And as much as we weren't as free-flowing with creating chances, we were still in control of the game. And it felt like it wasn't given a proper chance in that game either, the 3-5-2, because of how Lloris handled it and because of how Dyer handled it. So it sort of felt like they were a bit let down or even kind of betrayed. So I'd like to think that the 3-4-3 is sort of Conte's preferred formation. I think that is where he wants to go. I think that is what he'd like to fine-tune the most. But I also would like to say I feel like the 3-5-2 in certain games maybe hasn't been given the best chance or hasn't been given like the proper example or the proper demonstration by the players. It's almost like the players themselves haven't given it their all or given it their best effort in certain games, or even just been let down by mistakes from other players that made it look like it didn't work when maybe it actually did.
That's the problem, Jack. Look, you have good quality players from 1 to 11 or from 1 to 15, 16, whatever. They will adapt to any system, anything the manager's asking them to do because they have the ability to do it. Look at Kane and Son. No matter what manager's been here, they've always hit a level, they've always performed, and they've been asked to do different roles under each manager, and I've carried them out to the letter of the law. So it doesn't matter what formation, what system, what you're asked to do. It comes down to quality at the end of the day. And that's why you've seen Pochettino have to change tactics at times. That's why you've seen Jose Mourinho have to change tactics, formations at times. That's why Nuno had to start experimenting with it before he's gone. And that's why Conte's doing it now. Because you will have players that, unfortunately, they're too hot and cold. So it doesn't matter whether it's 3-4-3, whether it's 3-5-2, or whether it's 11 men behind the ball. It really doesn't matter. You're still going to have 4 or 5 players in that starting lineup. Sometimes it's only 3 that are ultimately going to cost you. You can't implement any system in modern day football if you can't play out from the back. If you cannot do it consistently, you can't play under pressure, you can't play out. It's that simple. It doesn't matter whether it's 3-4-3 or 3-5-2. You keep giving away the ball, everything ultimately is going to look the same. It's going to look the same. Tell me what the difference where we've looked in the 3-5-2 against United and in the 3-4-3 in some other games. We've been,
or even the 3-4-3 in the Sporting first half. First half, dreadful.
And back in our own box, haven't been able to get out. And it doesn't matter the formation; it looks the same because of the quality of the players.
What we're seeing with all these managers is basically all of these managers are dealing with the same gaping hole in the raft, and whatever. They're just, how
no
the
matter
fuck
where they
don't I
push the
sink,
air.
that's basically,
But you know what, if you're these managers, you're going to be frustrated. Jose Mourinho at Chelsea more or less stuck to the same system, same formation, just tweaked different things that he was asked to do in games or that he wanted the players to do in games where he saw winning the game and neutralizing the game. Conte has done the same at Inter, stuck to a formation, just maybe little tweaks and that within that formation. But when they come to Tottenham, they must get headaches because they have to pull out the whole tactical book. Right, what can I do with some of these numpties? They have to change, go through so many different formations and everything else. It must drive them mad. But when they're at their clubs where they have quality players, guess what?
They don't do their thing. Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
And I've actually made the case that in many ways, the best you've ever seen of Mourinho was at Tottenham because he was rarely, if ever, this creative tactically, and he showed his whole tactical repertoire. And to be honest, I was always deeply impressed by his tactical skills. It was more the man management. Maybe I would have wanted maybe more modern approach to that, but. I always feel like he got an absolute horrid deal at our club, as managers do. But also I wanted to say because of Højbjerg and venturing forward and stuff like this, I can give you guys a little bit of a footballing insight or
give it to us.
Because I played my football in Denmark, and yes,
learned the ways of the Højbjerg.
I grew up in Denmark. I lived 22 years in Denmark. And I played all my football in Denmark, basically. And the thing is, the greatest ever Danish player was Michael Laudrup. I don't know if you guys know.
I prefer his brother. I preferred his brother.
Yeah,
had a good name, his brother.
Yeah, but he was definitely a better forward than. But Laudrup wasn't really like Laudrup. Many argue, and I agree. Actually, Laudrup is the first false nine, and of course, Cruyff's Barcelona was the first tiki-taka. I mean, what Pep is doing is an evolution of what Cruyff was doing with the team that he played in. Pep, and Pep, of course, famously said about Laudrup that the Ballon d'Or didn't mean anything because Laudrup had never won it. So I definitely, for people who love football, I definitely encouraged you to look into Laudrup. He was some absolutely amazing player.
I know.
But that means anybody from the middle and forward that's Danish, they will have a playmaker in them. They will have that desire in them. That's just. You get that with the mother's milk in Denmark, that elite assist, that's what every Danish player kind of dreams of as well, So So and it's funny to see, you know, because Højbjerg doesn't have anywhere near the skills that you need for this, or a Laudrup or anybody like him would have. But actually, you can see Laudrup's DNA in his vision, you know, and when he does these things, this is I kind of like when Højbjerg goes to the line, he goes quite close to the goalpost often and then cuts back, you know. We've seen that quite a few times, you know, whereas many of the other players are wider when they give the pass, you know.
You're right.
Laudrup had this knack of always going as close to the goalpost as he could without being blocked out. And this is something Højbjerg does as well, you know, and like I see small touches like this, you know, so
perhaps Laudrup explains Salzburg.
Jory, I have to say, you're lucky no one from the Daily Mail is watching, because tomorrow's headline would be, Jory said crap Danish footballers were bottle fed. That's what the Daily Mail would say tomorrow if they were listening. That would be headline news.
Well,
looks like we learned the ways of the Salzburg.
I have one word for that: fake news. You know,
got the inside scoop.
That's where Zinedine Salzburg originated.
Now we know where the Salzburgs. There may be multiple Salzburgs out there. Is really what we got from that. They're all just wandering around, little Salzburgs. But Bryan, we are going to go to kind of a bit of a, I must say, not a great, you know, part of the discussion here. We kind of sort of have to talk about that first half against Sporting, because it really was absolutely dreadful. And you kind of then, if you think about it, the likes of Man United, they just simply didn't show up that day. It felt like against the likes of Newcastle, we had a certain, you know, couple of players who fell victim to individual mistakes. A couple of players in the squad, if not a few players in the squad, are really lacking confidence, I must say, at this moment. Then after this sort of first half against Sporting, it just sort of started to feel like maybe certain players, not all the players, of course, but maybe certain players might be not playing for Conte, or maybe have lost a bit of confidence in Conte. Where do you stand on this, Bryan? Have they just lost confidence in maybe themselves, or are they maybe starting to lose confidence in Conte, perhaps certain players?
Do you know what? With this question,
it's a hard question to ask, but it felt like
it's a hard question. But it underlines, if players are doing that, that shows how bad our mentality is at our football club.
Right.
That will show the kind of players that we have are just here, and like we've seen before, they'll flush managers out by doing exactly what this question says. I don't know in any kind of world if you go from a team,
because
that
it doesn't happen all at once, right? It starts with a few, right? It feels like it starts with a few.
But that's the thing. It's like saying, you know what? Here we go. We've had unknown managers, good managers, shit man. But I'm in football because I want to win trophies and shit. It's like saying, do you know what? Elon Musk has just become my new the backer of Tottenham on tour, and I said, do you know what? I don't give a fuck anymore. Don't invest in me. Elon Musk could take me to the heights. Pay for me not to do this on a tablet or in my mother-in-law's bedroom. I could have everything. And then it's like, Antonio Conte comes to a football club. You should be like, now I get my trophies. Now I get my silverware. Now this is what I wanted. I wanted to be coached by the best. I want to play for the best. Well, you ain't going to play for much better in your career than in his prime Antonio Conte. If that shouldn't drive you, if we all got given a chance right now, we got an email that said, you've been invited to a trial at Tottenham Hotspur, we would run through brick walls. If he said run for 12 hours back and forth non-stop, I'd be like, okay, Antonio, okay, if that's what you want me to do, I would like bang, bang, bang. Obviously, I'd be a slow pace. I'm not like putting super, but if he said run for 12 hours, I'm running for 12 hours. If he says swim the channel, I'm swimming the channel. I may not get there, but I'm bloody well doing it. I'm bloody well attempting.
What do you think of King Hoddle's comment then, Bryan? Like, is it maybe just the case that they're just reaching their expiration date, right? They're just sort of falling out of form. They're falling out of confidence. Perhaps it's not just them actually losing faith in Conte. It's them maybe losing faith in themselves. Could it be that more than them losing faith in Conte?
I will tackle Hugo Lloris in this one, because I think Hugo Lloris at the moment,
it is the elephant in the room.
Although Dyer, we know he needs upgrading, blah, blah, blah. What you got to remember, the goalkeeper, there's only one of them. Dyer can come out this squad, you put in another centre-back or another centre-back, or you can mix it about. With the goalkeeper, there's that and your backup. Hugo Lloris has been starved of competition. Starved of it. It's been like Gazanigas, the Gallinis, the
Gazaniga may be the best one he's ever had for competition.
Oh, you know what? The one I would say apart from that, Jack, is when he originally came, Brad Friedel. Apart from that, and he was there to give Brad Friedel competition, and then obviously take the throne from him after. He's now in an age. You got to remember as well. I've been saying this recently as well. When he came, the trend of the goalkeeper, like it was, we used to be 4-4-2. Football evolves. When he came, the number one attribute of a goalkeeper was to be for around Europe was a sweeper keeper, to come off your line quick and snuff out and he was exceptional at it. He was exceptional at it. But now we've evolved where, seeing that we play this tiki-taka football or playing from the back, playing with the ball at your feet is a huge part of goalkeeping nowadays. It's one of, you've almost got to be. You look at Ederson at United City. Sorry, he can ping the ball. He can look at even Jordan Pickford. Jordan Pickford's footwork and distribution is absolutely incredible. And Hugo Lloris, and it's been like this for years and years and years. I mean, you've only got to look. You would have thought. I would have thought as a goalkeeper, if I'm on all right, he won the World Cup. But if I'm on the World Cup final, the biggest football game watched around the world, and I make a monumental cock up trying to play out from the back, I'll be like, I've just made the biggest prick of myself on the biggest stage of them all. And this ain't the first time that I get caught out. Do you know what? Maybe now's the time to say, listen, and people keep saying to me, I think these managers are telling them to do this. And if that is the case, I'm kind of like, why are these managers can see he's fucking awful? I'm not telling him to stop it all the time, but I think we try it about 10, 12, 13 times a game. It don't work. And when there's a lot of pressure right now on us, and when there's a lot of anxiety when he gets the ball, hoof it. And you know what? When he actually kicks the ball from his feet, from his hands, his distribution is great. It's great. It's when it's on the bloody floor. But now it's got to the point where, look, the guy is 35 years old. He'll be 36 on Boxing Day. He has been. At what age? People come up to me.
I'm not having that, Brian. I'm not having that. If you're elite goalkeeper, that's your prime. 35, 36
I wouldn't
is
say
your
that.
prime.
Should he be getting wiser?
Exactly. That's where the wisdom comes into the game.
Jack to the rescue. But no, what I'm saying is right now his successor needs to come in. He hasn't had. You know what? Maybe they are in their prime if they've got competition.
Yeah, I agree.
And then just if they're good enough, you know.
I put a tweet out the other day, Jory, and I think you saw it, where I said, do you know what? Hugo Lloris, wonderful servant, shot stopping, second to none. He is still absolutely incredible. But I've watched games when he first came where he single-handedly won us points and got us up the top. Single-handedly. Whereas coming to the point now where he's starting to cost us more than he's. And
then he's saving us.
And a lot of people were saying, do you know what? Yeah, it's time for a successor. And then someone turned around to me and said, so what? He's a World Cup winner. And I was like, so Pele, does he still play?
Exactly.
Is he still playing? What does that mean? Because he's a World Cup winner, he has the divine right to play until he says so.
I don't want to take away from anything, like congratulations, well done and all of that, but it needs to follow that you have been playing those tournaments with the best backline in football, as it is, you know. And when that backline is a little bit off its game, another backline even better slots in, you know. So you're talking about the best defense in the international football anyway. And the whole defense there, by the way, is supremely good on the ball. Which, you know, if you have a back line where all of them are really good on the ball, I'm sure Lloris will suffice and not be this liability that he is. But we have a double whammy here, you know.
They make each other nervous. They all make each other nervous.
Let me ask you this, Jerry. Do the back line, because they know they're not confident, also give Hugo Lloris enough short options? Because if you're a centre back and you're confident on the ball, you're going to him demanding not to take that off him, no? Yeah,
it's a death spiral with that whole back of a squad, you know. It's Lloris, like I told you, you know, if Davis has for me, I mean, even Dyer, I'm kind of reviewing my view on Dyer last season, because I actually think, looking back at it, he wasn't put under that much pressure,
I'm guilty of it too, Jory.
Yeah. But one I will definitely defend is Davis. Davis made absolutely huge strides and improvement last season.
He did,
and went from somebody we couldn't get out of the club fast enough to being quite useful in the squad. But if you're not Davis and you look over and you see Dyer and Sanchez, that's all your confidence out the window.
It's almost
right
like they're
away,
passing the nervousness to each other. Like they pass the
of
burden,
course,
they
and
pass
then
the
he looks
pressure
back,
onto each other.
and then he looks at Hugo. How you feeling, Hugo? And Hugo's like shaking and has like the fear in his eyes, and then they all start looking at each other, and then Dyer, first of all of them, the supposed leader of the back line, starts shouting at and pointing, and it wasn't me, and what are you doing? And it's basically all him all the time, Sanchez, the poor guy, has had so much abuse put to him simply because Dyer was out of position. And I mean, he didn't come through for sure, but the amount of times that Sanchez with his pace has had to cover for Dyer and stuff like that, and for just really, really stupid plays from Dyer is unbelievable, and I don't like. It's not nice to talk about people in a personal way, and I don't mean it in a personal way, but footballers in general are not usually considered the most brainy people around, and I really think, with some of these, we're scraping the bottom, and I include Dyer. He's often talked about, with his 4 languages and how articulate he is in interviews and stuff like that. No, I think he's a very immature, very kind of a stupid guy, to be honest, and the same with Delhi. I love Delhi, and they're best friends, so I think they're kind of on the same silly level of brains, and but what's really bad about Dyer for me is that, like I said about him being a midfielder, I always looked at him going from midfield to centre back as his way of not being accountable for what he did in midfield, basically blaming it on the role,
Yeah.
And since then, he's been blaming it on all kinds of things. And the last stop in that is blaming it on the manager and start sabotaging the manager. And we are seeing the birth of this with Conte now. I'm convinced of that. These guys are now once again faced with owning up that they're way, way, way too bad to be in this squad. Or finding other excuses. And also the other compounding factor is
their own survival, even.
Yeah, for their own survival, for saving face and saving their paycheck and all of that. But there's also another compounding factor, which is once the physical aspect of this job gets too tough, with Potts, even with Mourinho, in terms of number of games, not maybe so much the training, but in terms of number of games, and then they were in the worst shape they've been ever. But Potts and now Conte, then they start squirming and not really showing up, and unfortunately, this is what scares the shit out of me, because it fuels the whole Conte out narrative, So
I agree there.
I just want to touch on Hugo quickly. Look, I do think he's a keeper in decline, but I don't think he's also being helped by that back line. Some of the balls that come back to him are bubbling, bouncing. They're not straight to, and some of them are overhit, some of them are underhit, some of them actually go out for corner kicks. I mean, that's why when you
it goes both ways, Dave. He simply gives them absolutely horrible balls to work with as well, So.
No, I agree. I agree with that for sure. I definitely agree with that. But I do think that maybe our defenders, if they were comfortable on the ball, I think sometimes they hide. I think sometimes when you see Hugo go along, there's 3 of them across there. One of them should be dropping in to get free to be able to take that off them, and they're not doing it. And it's like when we had Toby, Jan, Walker, Rose, Hugo could just pop it out to him, play a nice short game, and off you go. But sometimes when the ball's coming back to Hugo, you've got 3 defenders. One of them just needs to drop off and say, yeah, Hugo, give it to me.
Yeah, they
but
might
they're
be
not
hiding.
doing it because they don't want the ball. They're also hiding. And for me, I just think it is a knock-on effect on Hugo, but it's also exposing them more than what it's ever exposed them. I think if you had centre-backs who wanted the ball, I do think you would see a dramatic improvement. But look,
if you slot Man City's back line in front of Hugo, you won't see a problem anymore for 2 or 3 years at least, I think.
I agree.
But that's not the situation we have. So yeah,
I agree, and I do agree with you. I do think these players were contemplating or maybe starting to feel like they are going to throw the manager off the bus underneath the bus. Of course they are, because they know once they leave Tottenham, they're not going to reach the heights of playing at this level of football again. Their wages are going to take a decrease as well. They don't want that. And unfortunately, they've had too much power here over the years where it's like, okay, we're starting to be exposed now. Let's just get even worse and get rid of the manager. And because there's been a core group of them that all feel the same way, you've seen it happen. Now, I truly believe they tried that yesterday. But they got absolutely met by the fans' real opinions at halftime, so I heard, from the stands, booing. And it was aimed at them and nowhere near Conte. And I think they kind of thought themselves, oh, we're not going to get away with this much longer, you know? And that's why I think you've seen them buck up the right ears. But you also see it with the little bits and pieces coming out from Sky Sports about the training. Where we heard that before under Jose.
Exactly, that's what I'm seeing. Exactly, the training is group. You saw it with Hugo in the interview. Well, the number of games, you know. No, I'm not having it. This is what you signed up for. Yeah, you have to. It's simple.
But sure, you ask most footballers, they say they'd rather be playing than training.
Well, exactly, and you know, there's only really one answer to all of that, which is you're not good enough as a footballer. You don't have the athletic stamina, you don't have the the fortitude that's needed for this level of the game. You know, so you know, place the blame where it needs to be. You know, so yeah.
I do want to get to these are good super chats, but I do want to also get to the bottom of kind of is it just them just being terrible though? Is it really them not giving up on Conte, just them being terrible? Because a lot of people have put that in the chat, which I think is an interesting thought. But Phil here bringing up the Hill Messi conversation, saying Hill brings a spark to our play. Devine would also. Bryan Gil, I'm giving this one to you because I know you're the expert on Mr. Devine.
Listen,
does he have the creative midfielder in him in perhaps the next 2 years or something like that? Could we see him cracking in there?
I've seen this super chat brewing up in like, come on, we get to this conversation. Because if I get to talk about my boy,
this is your Hill Messi combo.
Oh my God, this kid. Listen, there's a guy in the chat. I think he's still in the chat. A good friend that I've become through these platforms called Rob Belcher. And we speak a lot, and he's a top man. I've really enjoyed getting to know him and speaking with him. And he watches a lot on Spurs play, and obviously get to see the youth, and he gives me breakdowns. I mean, I get to watch it when I can, because I've got it through Brian Ireland. I've got Spurs play because I won't give my money to the club. But yeah, so he gives me breakdowns of all the players that are coming through, and he goes, Devine was the one that was great. Devine is doing this. Devine is doing This kid is such a talent. Please God, let's just say we sold the club tomorrow. Let's just in my wildest dreams, the very first thing I do, because I've stopped buying stuff for the club, is buy Alfie Devine shirts. Even though he's not in the first team.
Alfie Devine, Brian. Let me ask you on Alfie Devine. Is he a talent that has the potential to make it, or is he a talent that can step in at his age already and make a difference? Someone maybe like a Wayne Rooney or someone like that. What sort of talent are we looking at?
So when I tweet about him, I tweet and I say the same thing every time. This boy ain't going to be a superstar. He's going to be a world superstar. This guy, I cannot begin to tell you, needs to go in. And if you listen to Alistair Gold, even when Alistair Gold's done bits about the youth, and he said, listen, he's 18 years old, he's outgrown the under-23s. He is too good for the under-23s at 18. And they were saying this at 17. Whatever league he's gone into, once he's got the grasp of it, they're like, that's it. You've outshot it. You're the player of the... And we saw it in England when they won the tournament in Israel. He was a huge part. Even in that tournament, he makes team of the tournament. Now, it's I think it was the under-18s or whatever the tournament was, he shines. Now, the thing we've got to work out is kind of like what Pochettino did, or what we did with Jose with Skip? Is it he needs to go out on loan and play regular minutes and play, as they say, man's football and take the tackles, take the knocks and earn his stripes? Or is he one of those that you nurture and keep very, very close within the club and give him those, like Wayne Rooney? There was no way, and I'm not saying he's going to be a Wayne Rooney, but players like that, they normally keep at the club because they're like, no, this kid's too special, he's going to do it. I hope and pray that he plays against Nottingham Forest in the Carabao Cup, whether it's on the bench or from the start. One of the main reasons is I'll be going to that game. It's the day I land. I'll be jet lagged to hell, but I'm going there with Ben and Sim. This kid, David, I can't begin to tell you how special this kid is. This kid. Yeah, go on.
Sorry. I want to add something on to just what you said there, Daigle. See, we don't really know the level of our youth products coming through because we haven't been able to blood them in cup games, because some of these guys have ended up having to moan and take the minutes because they're playing so bad. They end up taking the minutes and they let us down anywhere, whereas where it should be operating is you should have players that you can send out there in them cup games and trust them to be able to get the job done, especially against weaker opponents, and sprinkle that with the youth players that have, and give them a chance to come through and show what they can do. And we just haven't been able to do that, Brian. And look, Troy Parrott has suffered because of it. Dennis Serkin, who we let go to Sunderland, has suffered because of it. Then Mbappe's been loaned out. He's sort of, well, actually, he was given a couple of games, to be fair. But there's so many players through the years that haven't been able to be given any sort of chance to show what they can offer to Tottenham Hotspur to the first time, because we've ended up playing the likes of Ndombele, Lo Celso and stuff just to try and get performances out of them.
Yep.
They'll let us down and stuff like that. Do you see how, like, again, another example, Brian? We went through, we done the job yesterday. Could have seen Harvey White against Marseille in the next in the next game. You know,
this has been a bit of a problem.
We don't give ourselves the chance to play our youth kids.
This has been the problem with Tottenham. Unless it's a Harry Kane or a Harry Winks, forget how he turned out. He shot through Ollie Skip, whatever. I can see Leighton saying if he was that good, he'd be in the team now. The reason I say no, but I can see. Do you know what? I can understand, because, like I said, when I get to talk about this kid, I go very, very like, oh my God, this kid, and I can understand why people say. What I would say with that is, right now, Antonio Conte's mission is to make sure we're in the top 4 race come Christmas because of this World Cup. Because of this World Cup, he needs to be within that mix, and really within that mix before then. And Conte's been very, very impressed with him. Does he trust it? Listen, the way he plays, he's a very offensive player. He's a very offensive player. But we're playing, as we all know, very, very defensively now. So you bring in this very, very attacking player that wants to play this way, but Conte's going to say, no, you don't do that in the Premier League. You need to do this. Yeah. You're not going to see the best of Alfie. You're not going to see the best of him. You need to see him. If we had Kulusevski, Kane and Son, and we had a Højbjerg, one of the 4 we got, Basuma, Skip, Bentancur, blah, blah, blah. I would love to see Alfie Devine next to him. Right here, right now. Right here, right now. That's what I would love to see. But right now, he can't do it. He cannot, especially with the way we're playing now. We could scupper his confidence. You can see these people that lose confidence, that lose everything. He is not suited for this kind of football. He is suited for, if put it this way, if we have Pochettino right now, and I don't want to, but he would be in Pochettino's team, because it's like, right, go forward, go forward, go forward. That's the kind of player he is. He's not made for this style of football. And I've said it all along. I believe after the World Cup, we'll play a lot more expansive, like we did last season, because these games haven't been coming thick and fast and thick and fast and thick and fast non-stop. So Alfie, hopefully, will play against Forest. And if we don't have the January we all think or people think we might, I don't want him to go on loan. I want him straight into the mix with the first team, like Harvey White.
Yeah. Big up, Phil. Big up, Phil. And great answer there, Brian. If anything, also for Alfie, what I would quickly say to you there, Phil, is what I do hope Spurs do is, if they were smart, is that they would train Alfie and develop him in the hope that he is sort of going to be one of those superstar players in the making that could kind of take the reins maybe from the likes of a Harry Kane and a Sonny when they kind of start to get on a bit, because you'd like to think that maybe by the time he gets to 21, 22, he is sort of at like a Kulusevski kind of sort of level where he is capable of sort of kind of taking the team maybe on his own, or being able to start in the team, be able to be a leader himself. So hopefully if the Spurs do kind of get the development right. That could be, I think, the goal. But Dermot here with the super chat. Hill was a real spark when he came on last night, and but the rest of the players who let us down again and again. Big up Dave and Jack and the panel. It felt like what Hill was doing was exactly what Lucas just simply wasn't doing, and that's where it becomes a bit of a problem recently, Dermot. Sometimes I've seen some substitutions that have come onto the pitch where you're just basically just asking for basic things from the substitutes to come on, and in the case of Lucas, it really was just we wanted him just to beat his man, put in balls into the box, and just kind of create for his teammates, and he just wasn't doing it. Even we might be probably overpraising Hill a bit for just simply doing kind of the basics and just getting balls into the box and just kind of creating things for his teammates. It was almost like Lucas might have been doing it a bit too overcomplicating things, or might have been just a bit too soon for him. I'm not sure, but there were a lot of players out there, Dermot, that I just thought simply just didn't show up, especially in the first half. If anything, the one player that does continue to run his heart out is certainly Bentancur. The guy has an absolute engine, though. Dermot, absolute engine. Big up, Dermo. Appreciate you, man. And then Faz Radfire, Conte needs the fan support more than ever, or we lose him. And I think he also needs these player support, because right now I would say they're sort of letting him down in certain areas with these individual mistakes. Faz, it's not making Conte's job or the pressure on him any easier. But also absolutely right. Felt like the fans do need to kind of back him a bit more. I'm not really sure what the atmosphere was like in the stadium. Of course, we had the tifo and whatnot, but the fans did actually show a lot of boos towards the players instead of the manager. Just quickly, Jory, what are your thoughts on that? I heard some people who were actually in the stadium said that they were more trying to boo the players, it felt like, at halftime than they really were Conte, which sort of kind of sent a shock through the players, because they probably thought maybe all that sort of kind of negativity would be cast towards the coach. And in fact, it was actually cast on the players instead. And it kind of gave them a bit of a wake-up call.
I don't know how you differentiate that, especially, but if there was a way to kind of,
I'd like to think
yeah. But I mean, I know how you could do that, and I would actually say, I mean, I'm not on board with the booing, but I'm not condemning people who do it, actually, because I think it's completely entitled, and I don't think these players deserve any better, to be honest. I just think like it can, in a game, it's counterproductive, to be honest. But what we're saying, and this VAR decision is kind of hiding over how absolutely shocking what we saw yesterday. It's like the third game in a row, we saw more confirmation of the worst that we saw in the other two games, So I certainly don't blame them. Levy, when it cost £100 to see this shit, what do you expect, to be honest? And but I would say, if you're going to do that, if you're going to the game and you feel like booing, make sure to sing the Conte song as well. That's the way to differentiate. If you have boos, but you still sing the Conte song, it's clear who owns the boos, So
you're absolutely right.
I have to say, with the boos yesterday, they were blatantly the players. Like when we got rid of Nuno, what happened when Lucas Moura got subbed for who came on for Lucas Moura? I can't whoever came on. Whoever came on. But the first thing that got started singing before the Levy out, Nuno out, whatever, was "You don't know what you're doing."
Exactly.
That's when you know that's the manager. When you come off half time and you're losing 1-0, that's the players. That's the players, and the players deserve the boost. I'm not always in agreement. Like, if you're 0-0, that was a really bad half of football, and the fans have the right. They pay that stupid amount of money.
Off the back of two poor performances.
You have the years of stadium experience that I don't have, Brian. So maybe there is kind of a vernacular that the players the message gets across, so there's no confusion about it. It's at the players and not at the manager. But I do think it's still also, in general, it compounds the situation. Like, this negative atmosphere in the club is compressing everything, and everything needs to be resolved faster now. And without good resolution, well, then we know, we know the rest there, right?
I agree
bad
with what
resolution.
I agree with what you and Dagan are saying, but in a way, I kind of agree with the booze. I mean, these are guys.
No, I agree with the boost
I mean,
as well. I just think in the game itself, you still want to try and go for the points.
Yeah.
And I do think like maybe actually when they go to, I mean, there were boos during the game as well. I could hear that in my TV, So, but this loudest boost was definitely at the halftime whistle, and that's probably a way to boo where it might have maybe a good impact, and maybe it actually did there, who knows.
I do think they're being protected far too much. The narrative
I
they
agree
can't
as well.
control is with the fans.
Yeah.
So the fans, I think, have every right to air their frustrations at these guys if they're failing to simply execute the basics. Like they've got to realize, to us fan, that jersey is sacred. That turf at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium is sacred, and we expect the very best that you can give us on the night. And unfortunately, a lot of them aren't doing it. And look, they've hid behind managers, they've hid behind the papers, they've hid behind everything else. The one thing they can't hide from is the fans when they're in that stadium. So if they can hide and they can make excuses all these other times, well, the fans are the ones that are going to have to hold accountable if Daniel Levy and Enoch still allowed them to be here. The fans then have to make their voices heard, because they made the voices heard about Nuno. They got what they want.
I
put in surplus effort. Boo them. Let the chairman know you don't want them either. What we shouldn't be doing is singing "I love Eric Dyer." Eric Dyer loves me when he constantly fucking keeps making the mistakes he's making.
Exactly, and to be honest, I think a huge problem in this club in general is there's just too much of superficial niceties. To be honest, and it's like for me, I feel like Tottenham is one of the most English clubs of all the clubs, and I mean that in both for good and bad, I mean it in a bad way, as in terms of you'll choose courtesy over passion, and you need to tolerate like the thing that comes up when I'm watching these things happen, the song "If You Tolerate This, Your Children Will Be Next," it comes up every time. It's like we cannot, as a culture, as a Tottenham culture, tolerate this. Like it needs to be blasphemy if we ever want to win anything. This is how, like, go to any winning club. They will not. Like it's absolutely pandemonium if you see this kind of behavior in their club, So and what the players need to do to get any kind of status is so much more than in our club. And I've said it before on Tottenham TV. Why we always clinging on to Kane's accolades. It's kind of telling everybody that we're losers, to be honest, because the closest thing that we come to glory is to hang on Kane's personal accolades, which is pathetic in my view. As much as I'm happy for Kane and proud of Kane, I think it's pathetic for us as Tottenham's fans, to constantly have that as our sentimental pick-me-up,
But Jerry, when we're sitting in the stands and in the concourses singing "I Love," which is the worst song to sing ever, it doesn't even get you pumped up or revved up for anything.
You would never get me to sing that song.
Eric Dyer loves me. Is there any wonder why we're seeing rumours of him getting a new contract? Like, Jesus, fuck me, we don't have to spend 50 million. The fans absolutely love Moonhead. Why do we need to spend 50 million? They're singing his names in the stands, dancing around, going mad about it in the concourse. Give him a new contract. It's brilliant.
It's a good thing that you brought that up, actually, Dave, because I have a theory around that as well. Which is these games now have been like, Conte has gone to the board like this is done. This is obvious. You see the centre back now, like we cannot, whatever, and these kind of news. And also, I heard that I can't remember who, like there was another situation, also centre back situation, a kind of prospect, the cheap guy that we're now in some talks with again, and that was kind of a spin, like it would be something amazing or whatever. this could also just be a counter move from the board to kind of try and mitigate try and win the PR battle over not buying those expensive center backs. I do think if we bring the cash, we'll get Bastoni in January. I think you can buy Bastoni in January, but are we going to pay it? I don't think so. And I can see a situation where that will be the final straw. Where Conte will demand Bastoni in January, and it won't happen. And from then on, he will be at best going through the motions. And
that's the $1 million question that we would pay in a series of installments. And kidding. But Leighton Evelyn saying here, do you think the club will spend 50 million in January? Certainly a big question here, Leighton. Last time out, we brought in the likes of Kulusevski, which was sort of actually kind of bringing out that joke, was sort of a loan plus buy option where we were sort of, by the looks of it, maybe kind of preparing the money over kind of a period of time. Bentancur, we pretty much, I think, just paid the money straight up for, I think around 20 million or so, 19 million, whatever it was. So we didn't really exactly splash the cash in January. Is it really always the money, though? It's more always exactly how we spend it and whether we spend it on the right players and whether we spend it smartly, because you can't just throw 50 million at something and actually have nothing to show for it. That happens to plenty of clubs who do that in January. It's really where we spend the money and how we spend the money, because for me, I think a center back is a must. And I think we probably do have to figure out the wing back situation if Jed Spence really isn't actually Conte sort of his player. If he really doesn't want to use him, if he really doesn't want to develop him at all, then I think we do probably have to take a look at the wing back situation. So if we do need at least 2 players, and some people want just 2 center backs, some people want a center back and a right wing back. I mean, plenty of people want at least 3 players. So is 50 million enough? I think it probably is enough. It's just whether we spend it wisely there, Leighton. But probably go around to the panel here just quickly and maybe just kind of get a vibe check from the panel.
I'll give a quick answer and then let you guys go ahead. So I would say we need to spend 150 million in terms of quality. Paratici will probably make that 70 million or 80 million or maybe even less, whatever. But in terms of quality, we need a 50 million quality type player in each of these positions. And that's what we need all of the positions in January. Otherwise, we're not serious. And that will be the final kind of final proof for Conte that this club is not serious. So I'll leave you guys now to answer that.
Yeah, I agree. Diego?
Oh, here we go.
You've been waiting for this. Go on. You've been waiting all evening.
No, you know what? For me, right. So first of all, you remember when this 150 million came in? If people remember, and I'm sure I'm right on this because funny enough, I did my homework on this. We obviously announced when we drew 100. It became common knowledge. We drew 100 from it. We have to draw this 50 before New Year's in case that 50 gets back to the shareholders. So first of all, when we talk about this 50 million, there may be more from the club with revenue coming in, whatever. But the 50 million we're talking about in question is that 50 million that's left. That has to be actively withdrawn before New Year for us to get access to it.
Just let me ask you a quick question on that, Dave. Yeah. Is there any projects that they're building or anything like that maybe they're holding it back for? They're going to draw down on it to use for that, and it might not actually be used for transfers.
Who knows with him? I keep saying that he's going to build a tunnel under the ground instead of the H Club. You get to look at the pitch from underneath. But then you've got to realise there's a second pitch underneath it, so you won't get your money. But no, what you got to look with this is, I think we will spend it. I think we will spend 50 million. But like everyone's saying in the comments, like 50 million gets you fuck all nowadays.
But it feels like we almost spent 50 million last summer, or last January, but we really didn't. So sometimes it's like we might end up spending 30 million and it feels like we spent 50 million because of how good the players we got in. You never know. But sorry, Diego.
But Jack, the thing I was going to say, like Jory said, this has to be spent wisely.
Yeah.
This has to be spent wisely. And when I mean by wisely, if we go and sign another central midfielders, we got 5 of them, and it costs 50 million, but he's a good player, I won't count that as smart business because we've got 4 of them. We need to fundamentally address the areas that we know we need surgery. Not, this good player that's come up in this position, but we got 3 or 4 of them. Let's just get them. We need like I said, like a Skriniar to come in, that dominating, hard as nails, strike fear into your defender that will, like an Nemanja Vidic, that will take no prisoners, put his body on the line. And do you know what? I want a defender that comes in and sees what we're playing and goes, do you think this is acceptable? And will actually shout his mouth off and say, wake the fuck up. This is not how we do. That's what we need.
Brian, let me ask you this. Do you think any of the first choice targets that are available? Because if we're working off the notion that we didn't get in any defenders in the summer transfer window because we're waiting for our first team, our first choice to become available, can we get them in January then? Because 50 million should be enough to get Bastoni. Because he's our first choice, we all know it.
Exactly. Bastoni was my first choice as well. I kept praying, and when that Pau Torres deal came up, I actually thought, my God, once are we making Villarreal our bitch rather than being the bitch for other teams that come in to try and push a deal through? And I thought, yes, Pau Torres were being rumoured with him to get Inter to just hurry up and get this deal. But obviously that didn't happen. Bastoni, for me, I still want him so badly. Yeah. But right now, for me, the gap, I would say, if I had the choice right now, Bastoni or Skriniar, I'm going Skriniar because I'm getting sick and tired of Dyer. Yes, Bastoni is a great player in a position we need. If you look at Lenglet, stopgap, blah 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 blah. We need someone. You look at what Skriniar's done. He's played with Conte. Conte was we were trying to get him, but Conte kept him, and he went on to win a league with him, playing most of the games and being brilliant.
Yeah. If you now look at the all of the, just to jump in, sorry, Brian.
Yeah, go on, brother.
If you put Skriniar now in, then Hugo is in a much better place.
Bingo.
And Davis and Lenglet is going to be okay,
Bingo.
It's not the dream back line, but it's okay, It's
I thought all last season, right wing, attacking mid, get Maddison. But then obviously the right wing back was a necessity. It was a huge necessity. We all know that. Jed Spence, I believe, will be the one, but not right now. And there's already rumours that he's going out on loan. So then we're back to where we were to begin with.
But that might actually be a foretelling of us spying in January, because they need to make room in the squad for it.
Exactly. But this is the thing. Then if that does happen, I think a centre back and a right back is more important than the attacking midfielder. I think we desperately need, because we are hemorrhaging goals. Yeah. And just look at the goal yesterday. The defence just sat back and said, "Come on, just." Marcus Edwards, just cut. You used to play for Spurs. Have a shot. We'll give you a free shot. See if it's no. Skriniar would have gone, right, I am taking you the fuck out. And if I pick up a yellow card or whatever, then he'll bitch to his defenders. And we need that commander. We need that commander in chief. Yeah. And I think central defender. If we put it this way, if we went and only signed Skriniar in the window, as much as I would want more. I would turn around and say, well fucking done, club.
It's ambition. We needed,
it's
ambition. Someone like
exactly. And it would be like, that we needed this fucking player. We didn't need one for the future or a cheap imitation or something. We need someone you can say, right, here we go. And I keep saying this. I want us to sign players where not only us are rubbing our hands like this, other Premiership teams are going, oh shit. Look what Tottenham have done. They've just made a statement. This is what they're doing now. That's what I've wanted to see. And Skriniar, if we only bought Skriniar, and if it was Skriniar, I would come out at the end of the window, even though it was only one, and say, do you know what? It may have been one, but it was of high quality. That's what we need to do.
Guys, I mean, it's really simple. Just give Conte what he needs, and he will win it for you. That's guaranteed, as anything is guaranteed in football. If you give Conte the defense, the midfield, and the attack that he wants, he will win it.
Where we're at right now, everything should be first choice signings coming in. Like, we've done enough groundwork for me in the summer. Yeah. And like, so what? Look, I'm still going to say. Yeah, go on.
Sorry, Dave, I just want to jump in. That was also my only hope about how the transfer window ended, was that I heard a rumor that they were saving a nest egg for January, because there was a chance that some of the first choice signings might be able to be done. Then,
but Joey, the one thing on that, this is the only problem that I have with this when people say in January is because of this goddamn World Cup. If any of those targets are at the World Cup and they have a good World Cup, their value goes. Us trying to play let's run their contract down. Let's try and get them. If player 8, let's just say I love at Canada, and I keep talking about him, Tajon Buchanan. There is a midfielder or a winger for Canada that will play every game. Tajon Buchanan. I would love him at Spurs. He's at Club Brugge on loan right now. I spoke to King Hoddle about him if he's still in the chat. He's like Leroy Sané, and he looks like him as well with his hair. If he has a good World Cup, it's probably about 20 million, let's say right now. If he has a great World Cup for Canada, that 20 million now becomes 35, 40, 45, and that's the risk you're running. So that nest egg could be, like you said, that we kept it back for January. But again, I see that as bad planning. But if those targets have a good World Cup, that budget, like the stadium,
the price goes through the roof after the World Cup for sure.
What I'll just say quickly on the transfer window is, I think, look, January is still going to. I think it will be a slightly bit different this year because it is the World Cup there, and a lot of clubs probably will end up doing business after the World Cup, etc., etc. But what I will say is, January is still going to be a hard market to operate in. It is only 1 month, and you know, if you can't get your first choice options in, you might see 1 or 2 that are brought in to help. But the summer is where, for me, every player that comes into this club has to be a dramatic improvement on what we have in that position.
Big namers, the big names.
First choice. I think we've done enough work last summer, and I even think we've got enough youth prospects. We've got Harvey White, Devine, Sarr, Parrott, Scarlett, Gil, Spence, Idoji coming in. You've got enough youth prospects as well around. So you don't really need to go into that market either. It's all purely just getting in your first choice sort of players, your first choice targets, and really taking it onto a new level. But Leighton Evelyn, big yourself up, brother. Really,
and it needs to happen in order to get top 4. Absolutely,
I would say, exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say. Is like we need so this is my recipe here. We need a first choice centre back and a second choice cam at the least in January to not risk top 4 big time, or we need all 3 second choice positions: wing back, centre back, and cam second choice position. That's the minimum. Otherwise, we're lucky to get top 4 in this league if we don't do that. So.
Just another thing. Jeff Ives put in a comment saying, try and get Skriniar on a pre-contract deal and sign Bastoni. That's what I don't want the club to do. We need Skriniar now. Yes, you can get him for free in the summer. We need him now. None of
I just think
we've got to stop. People that are on free contracts, if they're that desperate, or not desperate, if they're that integral to the team like Skriniar would be, fuck the free transfer. He's going to be cheap because he's got 6 months left. Just do it. You've got 20 million for Ericsson because you wanted him out. And so that's the kind of level you're talking about, 20 odd million.
Paris,
if he can come in and sort the team out,
want him,
bang.
But Skriniar, especially Skriniar, I think like Paris really want him. Madrid also wants him.
It's his choice. It's going to be up to him.
What I'd actually be looking at in January is Bastoni. His contract is coming. He's got 1.5 years left on his contract. If they don't make a deal for him this January and he goes into the summer, his value is completely cut in half of what we would have ended up paying for him. He's not playing at the minute at Inter Milan. And I wouldn't say he's happy not playing either. So Conte will just say, well, look, I brought you to Inter. Come on over here. I'll nurture you again. I'll make you a Premier League player. And I think that's the one where we've kind
of... I think it's more like I agree with Brian. I would rather have Skriniar over Bastoni right now. But Bastoni is more realistic, I think, exactly because the Conte connection is extremely strong with Bastoni.
You're right.
And he's not getting minutes, as you say. And actually, which is kind of almost a little bit kind of scandalous because he kind of refused all offers on the basis of loyalty to Inter this summer. You know, so Inter's not repaying that loyalty.
They're not repaying them. No, you're right.
No.
Yeah,
So I think we have we do have a chance with Bassoni, and I always felt like, and I remember when I heard the rumor about us saving some money, and I there was something about it that said Bastoni to me, you know. So
yeah, 100%.
And that, like, if nothing else, if we got a Bastoni, that would be amazing. That would be very good, you know. Yeah.
Sure. Foggy Foam here with a super sticker, and it's on set is what it says, Dave. It's actually one of those kind of director's chairs by the looks of it, and I guess it's because we got the Daigle here, we got the Joracle here, we got it all on set for this combo here. The panel is all on set, and we're wrapping it up here. And honestly, Foggy, really appreciate the support, but you have given me a really great opportunity to plug our man on set here, Mr. Daigle.
Look at that, like a pro. Look at that.
What a pro. Tell us about Tone Montour, Mr. Daigle.
Yeah, we're coming.
And
back.
also, is there for KPV, in case he asks, and so he doesn't get us in trouble, is there the late show tomorrow?
Yeah, there should be a late show tomorrow. I've got to just check in with Brian. Brian Island now, mate. This guy's jet setting all over the place. But now I spoke to him today. He's actually doing a gig in Niagara Falls right now, so he's right there for the weekend. So maybe me and Bobby K. I've got to speak to him, but I would say right now there's a 99.99999999999 chance that there is a late show tomorrow. But yeah, the Tottenham on tour are coming back in a big way. When I get back to London November the 9th, it's been very hard. I keep saying this, it's been very hard recently with things going on behind the scenes, which we apologise for. And we keep saying when we come back, we want to make sure that we come back and we don't go anywhere. It's not like, we're 5-6 weeks and then where'd they go again? So we've had to kind of align it, and the way it's going to work is obviously with me being in the same country as Danny, as Ben and Ryan Isaacs. It's a lot easier to say, right, let's put something out, let's put something out. So we will be back in a big way November the 9th, but you will catch me actually. I'm doing a show with Savard tomorrow, like a talk. It's going to be called Daigle and Savard and Daigle's Huddle or something like that. He's creating the title, but I'm doing that tomorrow at 4 p.m. your time, like local time back home, which is 11 a.m. Northern time, Eastern. Jesus Christ, Eastern time. But yeah, Tottenham on tour are coming back in a big way in November, and that's where you'll find us. And thank you for letting me plug it, boys.
No,
I love it.
Thank you for joining us, Daigle, and thanks for always putting in the hours with us, and also making these convos, as engaging as we want them to be. And, taking the questions seriously, Daigle. That's the pro that you are. Thanks for calling me a pro. You're a pro yourself, my man. Yeah. But Jory, thanks for joining us, and also smashing debut as well.
Yeah,
good to have you.
It was a lot of fun, guys. Thanks
for
a lot.
Everybody.
Say what?
Sorry,
any final words?
Yeah, any final thoughts? Any kind of final words for everybody?
No, not really. Just like, we're gonna go like to maybe end on a positive note. Like the time for a crisis, the best time for a crisis is right now. So, if this is our crisis, let's just get through it and let's get better on the other side, and we can then come out of the World Cup hopefully screaming and look more like we did towards the later part of the last season, right? So.
Well, there's no Ireland at the World Cup, Jory, so I'll be screaming when it's finished anyway, for sure. But Jory, really appreciate you making your debut today, my man. I really enjoyed the conversation we've had. I really enjoyed your input to the panel as well. So thank you, Jory. Really appreciate you, my man.
Likewise, guys. I really enjoyed this. I would love to come on again. So just give me a shout if you need me.
Oh, 100%. Look, we'll be in contact. And I'm pretty sure other channels will be probably reaching out to you tonight after this evening, my man. Jacko, Flat Cap.
Yes, everybody. If you want to hear me basically just kind of, practically kind of shit on Scott Parker for a little bit. I kind of just sort of just spoke about my concerns about his complaining about the lack of investment at the two teams that he's been at. I think both Fulham and Bournemouth have actually weirdly done a lot better since Scott Parker has left them. So that's basically what the whole video is about, is maybe Scott Parker should take a look at himself before maybe throwing any stones, because it seems like Fulham and Bournemouth respectively have done smashingly since he's left them, and perhaps he spoke a bit too soon over there at Bournemouth. And also, since he's just a former Spurs player and we do probably want the best for him, basically just sort of speculate things are not looking too good for him with how I think his last 2 jobs have gone. So that's kind of the whole point of the video. I'm actually going to do a similar one when I get the chance on Steven Gerrard, kind of a similar vibe as well on that one, kind of thinking maybe Steven Gerrard's career is not really headed down the best path either.
Even former Spurs players refuse to take the blame, right?
The Eric Dyer YMCA rings through all of them. It certainly does. Pick up.
No, but well, look, I want to say a massive thank you to you guys out there that's been tuning in, be getting your comments in the whole stream. A lot of you are saying you really enjoyed it tonight, so I really appreciate the feedback. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone who smashes the like, the subscribe, and continues to support us the way you do. It's absolutely relentless, so big yourselves up, and hopefully we can keep putting out shows like this to show you that we do actually value and appreciate your support. So a massive thank you to everybody. And a massive thank you. And it's not easy to Jack to sit there and host and keep his opinions to himself, but somehow he does it. So big up, Jack. Big up, Daigle. Big up, Jory. What's coming up for you guys? Fan show tomorrow for anyone who wants to come on and have their say pre-Bournemouth game. And then you'll also then Saturday have the pre-match build-up, watch along, and post-match fan show to look forward to. So guys, big weekend ahead. Let's try and wash all the doom and gloom off us, and let's get back in the right frame of mind for the Bournemouth game. Enough therapy has taken place. Let's get behind the boys as fucking always. Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.
We trust.
Come on, you
I'm not
Spurs.
saying today. Sue Smith did it for me. So come on, you Spurs.
Keep the fingers. Oh, well, Sue Smith.
You don't want to do the fingers, Daigle?
No fingers?
Okay, do you know what? I kind of feel like my OCDs will kick in if I don't.
Yeah, it's getting my OCDs kicking in for it.
And as always, Levy out.
There you go.
There we go. Nanu.
There we go.